I stand here today
on an island in the middle of the mighty Mississippi,
clear-eyed about the fight
to
ahead.
declare
these words.
that
I am a candidate for president
I'm running
of the
for
United
president.
States
President of the United States of
President of the
America.
United States.
Things in the last few weeks have started to feel real. You have the largest and most diverse Democratic field in recent history, if not ever.
Where do they go first? Where do they decide to make their announcement? What's the backdrop? Are they in a big crowd? Are they in an intimate space? Are they chatting with a talk show host? It's all very carefully calculated.
I stand before you today to announce my candidacy for President of the United States.
Senator Kamala Harris is out of the gate, making a very clear play from the beginning who she sees her constituencies as. She announced on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day on Good Morning America.
I am running for President of the United States.
She had a kickoff rally in Oakland. She's basing her campaign in Baltimore. She's very clearly making the argument that the electorate that can put her in the White House is female and African American.
In our country, if you work hard and play by the rules, you ought to be able to take care of yourself and the people you love.
Elizabeth Warren announced with a video and then went straight to Iowa. She's preaching a sort of prairie populism in the same parts of the Midwest where Bernie Sanders did well and where Donald Trump did well. And I think the most interesting event that she did was a women's roundtable with Iowa female candidates.
It was a transformative.
This event was a way of saying it wasn't these women's year in 2016, but it was in 2018, and that's where the momentum is.
In America, we have a common pain, but what we're lacking is a sense of common purpose.
Cory Booker made the decision to announce on Twitter. He then immediately went and did the nation's largest African-American radio show. Later in the day, he went to The View. Again, another candidate who's making a play that the future is female, the future is African-American. He is committed to running this race almost like an Obama. You hear a lot of Obama's optimism in his messaging, but there's also a sense of grievance as well.
My candidacy for President of the United States.
Amy Klobuchar decided to get into this race in a snowstorm in Minnesota, really tried to sell her credibility as a Midwesterner. That said, you only get one shot at introducing yourself, and she spent most of her media tour explaining why she has a reputation as a tough boss.
And insisting on a better future. I belong to a generation that is stepping forward right now. We're the generation.
Pete Buttigieg would make history. One, he'd be the youngest person ever elected president. He's 37 years old. And he'd be the first openly gay individual elected president. He's got some very capable staffers around him who say they're playing the long game, not the headline game, and are building a grassroots organization for him in case lightning were to strike his candidacy.
Kirsten Gillibrand took what is becoming a common approach to presidential announcements.
I'm filing an exploratory committee for President of the United States tonight.
She followed that up with a trip to upstate New York, talking about her roots coming from a relatively rural part of the state, although that's somewhat debatable.
Because that's who we are as Americans.
Who particularly, I think, wants to be sort of the feminist candidate, if there can be one.
When we raise our right hand and volunteer to serve,
Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard might win the award for worst out-of-the-gate experience in this campaign. She spent months trying to lay the groundwork for a presidential run. Then she suddenly announced, to everyone's surprise, that she was running in an interview with CNN.
I have decided to run and will be making a formal announcement within the next week.
Whoa! It took hours before they were able to get an official announcement up on her social media accounts. It's not outside the realm of the possible that she tries to do Launch 2.0.
You see, I learned from my mother so many years ago in this community that when we want change, we don't wait for change, we work for it.
Julian Castro announced his candidacy with a speech in San Antonio, Texas, where he is a former mayor and a well-known political figure. If you think about the political dynamics of the Trump era, how much of our national conversation has focused on immigration, has focused on diversity, you would think there is a mile-wide opening for particularly a candidate of Hispanic origin.
Bernie Sanders in 2016 is still fresh in a lot of people's memory, for good and for bad.
Is going to send a message to the billionaire class
of economic, social, racial, and environmental justice.
Fundraising will not be a problem for him. He captured a lot of people's imagination, but he also made a lot of people very angry.
At this point, some of the most important candidates in the Democratic field are not in the Democratic field, but they're sort of hanging over it.
A lot of people telling you you should be president of the United States is a powerful message, and it's tough to pass up.
Nobody asked Martin Luther King what his legislative agenda was. He marched to change attitudes.
Joe Biden's run for president twice before, not very successfully at all, but that's before he served as vice president and became a beloved national figure. He's a very old school politician, loves to shake hands and hug babies. Even though he leads in a lot of the early polling, you don't see him scaring a lot of other Democrats out of the field.
Republicans won big in Ohio in the midterms, but Democrat Senator Sherrod Brown is thinking about running in 2020.
Sherrod Brown is making a big bet that he can bridge the divide between the progressives in the Democratic Party and the rank-and-file working-class voters. He launched a pre-campaign Dignity of Work tour.
You love your country, you fight for the people who make it work.
It's a way to get him part of the King legacy.
The dignity of labor.
Without trying to have too sharp of an elbow.
Beto O'Rourke burst onto the national Democratic scene with his candidacy against Senator Ted Cruz from 2018, a race that he did not win. He's sort of publicly agonizing over this decision. Former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz has sort of come out of nowhere in recent weeks as a potential contender.
I am seriously thinking of running for president.
He is a former Democrat, but he wants to run as a centrist independent, and it's fair to say he's set off a panic.
Billionaires, you need to find new hobbies.
He's getting a lot of criticism for being a billionaire at a time when I think Democrats are much more focused on economic inequality.
No sooner than Howard Schultz announced that he was starting down this path, Bloomberg put out a very self-aware statement saying, a billionaire with no shot of winning the presidency as a third-party candidate is only going to make Donald Trump a two-term president. The former mayor of New York City has more money than he could possibly spend in a presidential race, which makes him an instant contender.
The sheer number of candidates and the uncertainty, I think, caused by the very unusual presidency of Donald Trump are going to make this a race like nothing we've ever seen before.
These are not fringe or kooky candidates. These are legitimate candidates who represent certain constituencies in the Democratic Party.
Just about every Democrat in the country has got to be on your long list of candidates, and then there's always the possibility that somebody comes out of left field. Last we heard, Oprah wasn't going to run, but you never know. So buckle up, it's going to be a wild ride.